This is the Criterion Creeps podcast, and tonight we're talking about Coco, a talking gorilla from 1978, directed by Barbet Schroeder. No tagline for this film, RJ, and not much of a synopsis either, because there's really not much of a plot.
Yes.
A documentary that follows Dr. Penny Patterson's current scientific study of Coco, a gorilla who communicates through American Sign Language.
Yeah. Why is it called American Sign Language? Isn't it universal?
I don't know. I know it's been called that before. I have heard of American Sign Language.
Sign Language versus British Sign Language. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Versus other sign language. Let's see here. Although ASL has the same alphabet as English, ASL is not a subset of the English language. American Sign Language was created independently and has its own linguistic structure. Signs are also not expressed in the same order as words are in English. That doesn't tell me anything. Apparently it's ASL, American Sign Language, and BSL, British Sign Language. So there's probably some slight differences. It says regional accents and dialects. So there you go.
Yeah, there you go. So
I know some signs.
Yeah, that might come in handy this week as we talk about. You're doing a thing.
Never mind. Okay. What are we talking about this week, Jarrett?
We're talking about a talking gorilla. So this has got a couple of factors in it that might be relevant to one RJ, co-host of this podcast. This is about, I guess, not maybe behavior. I'm not sure if behavior was in your oeuvre when you were doing back in the day when you were doing your master's kind of work and doing the neuroscience stuff, talking about brains, but also all about animals and in their relationship with human science.
Jarrett, let me blow your mind right now. My master's was in behavioral neuroscience, focusing on animal models of behavior. So I didn't work with primates.
No.
And I didn't live with them. But what I did is the exact branch of research of what is presented in Coco.
Right. So
it's just different because it's different animals. That's all.
Right. So were you familiar with the case study of Coco? So this is studied and discussed in school in your coursework at the time.
Yep. Yeah, so my one undergrad is in psychology, and I took a lot of animal behavior classes because it's what I liked the most. And I still do. I like animal behavior more than any of the other stuff. Social psychology was fine, but I never really gave a shit about people because I just don't. I was like, I don't know. You know how I always say it. It's like people suck. I always just really like the animal stuff because animals are cool, man. It's like. And I've always thought that, even as a little kid, I was like, these guys are way cooler than we are. Let's learn about them. So, I took lots of animal behavior stuff, and Coco came up a lot in animal behavior studies for psychology stuff. So I knew I was well familiar with my girl Coco before we went into this week. I don't know about you, though, or what else you were going to say.
So, I remember way back, I think when we were talking about the previous Barbet Schroeder documentary in our creep about old General Idi Amin data, and I think at the time mentioning that, and then Barbet Schroeder also has his Coco documentary, and I think at the time you were like, and I think at the time you expressed interest in when we got to this one. So this has been on my. It's one of those. I love documentary as a medium, I guess. And so I was always curious about this because this one doesn't get talked about a lot.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. I mean, now that it's part of the Criterion Collection, Barbet Schroeder isn't really on people's radars as sort of a big name director, even though I actually think he's done a lot of interesting stuff. And even the 11-minute long interview on the channel that accompanies this, I thought was really interesting because I think that you could easily miss kind of his position on the science and the actual entire like
yeah,
philosophy, I guess, like the ideology of what this is entirely, and also what different perspectives of what language is means.
Oh yeah. Well, that's another thing too that like I always thought was really interesting, and that was always brought up in animal behavior stuff was like how language is used and how it's used by different species too. And that's another like Noam Chomsky thing too, right? Like Noam Chomsky is huge on like human use of language.
Yeah.
And like how it's used as a tool for things. But like animals, everyone's always weird about animals. They're like, well, animals can't talk to each other. It's like that's not even kind of true. Animals have all sorts of like complex communication. It's just different from ours.
Right.
And like that's the thing about animal research in general. It's like what animals do is far more intricate than what we do. It's just different, and it's hard for people to understand, and it just looks like it looks simpler in comparison, but it's like it's actually a lot more complex.
And I think that's I think that's probably one of the more frustrating things for me, watching people talk about the subject or talk about the entire idea, particularly between this. And we also watched because I found out that there was a BBC documentary that aired on PBS a year later in 2016. So this was that came out 3 years before Coco died, and so Coco is still alive, and who lived till 46 years old.
Yes.
In I don't know if you'd call it captivity, but
I would.
Yeah, because it's not in like it's not quite a zoo, but it's on this like reservation, because I'm not quite sure how the last few years, because there's like the Gorilla Foundation, and
they opened it up, but I mean for almost like her entire life she just lived in that trailer, right? And so even when they did open it up, she had an outdoor area, but it wasn't a huge living space, not quite like. And gorillas don't need a ton of space either, because gorillas like in the wild they do like roam a bit, but they do a lot of lounging. So like a lot of gorilla life is just laying down in like nests kind of, and like that's what primatologists always said. Like at school they were kind of like, we've studied gorillas are boring, all they do is sleep all day. They're like, so it's like everyone wants to hang out with gorillas because of Coco. They're like, but gorillas are actually kind of boring because all they do is just kind of like lay around all day. So they don't need they don't have a big roaming space, but like they need space. Like a trailer isn't quite enough for like a 1-ton animal,
Yeah. So I'm just looking this up. So Coco lived most of her life at the Gorillas Foundation Preserve in the Santa Cruz Mountains of California. At the beginning of this documentary, there's the one guy, Roger Fouts. He's based out of looks like the Institute for Primate Studies in Oklahoma, which is like
where else would it be?
The natural habitat of the gorilla, Oklahoma.
Yeah, not not Congo, not like the mountains in Africa or anything like that, like the lowland mountains or anything.
But it's probably perhaps the climate in Oklahoma is just fine. Maybe it's very similar.
Could have been just right.
I could have just been just right. Very well selected.
Yes.
For all I know, I'm not an expert on this matter. So anyway, Coco basically was born in 1971 at the San Francisco Zoo, and in the Schroeder documentary, they kind of like hand wave a little bit. I don't know if it's like because it was so in close proximity to like a court case or a settlement that was made with the city of San Francisco in terms of like paying whatever it was, $13,000 to the city for Coco
Coco,
to like keep her with basically Penny Patterson in the foundation, because essentially, as we'll talk about, the damage was done. In terms of the long-term study on Coco, where there was no way you could reintroduce Coco into a community of other apes and it go well. It was like basically it's like it's too much, it's too far gone. Like Coco knows that she's a gorilla, but she also like she's been socialized into with living with humans and like basically developing a mother-daughter relationship with her primary caregiver, Penny Patterson. So there's after I watched the BBC documentary, which gives a lot more actual like context to like what was going on in this film. The Criterion one itself was it starts like having this like Grey Gardens feel to it, where like everyone's sort of just come to this point and it's just sad. It's just like for everybody involved. But it's just like, well, what else do you do but live with the situation that you wind up in, be it right or wrong? There's really not much more you can do. It's just like, this is what it is. You make do with it what you can, which is life. RJ.
I'm aware. I'm aware.
Yeah, you're just like, this is what it is. I guess we're along for the ride. So one of the opening shots of the documentary itself is Coco playing with the viewfinder, looking at some images and operating it. So there's suggestion of intelligence, which we kind of know. We know this. And then we're kind of introduced to kind of like the talking heads that we'll see the most, which is Penny Patterson, of course. There's her advisor for her PhD thesis, Dr. Carl the Haircut Pribram. You know
who? Pibram?
Pribram.
Pribram? Yeah, okay.
Everyone knows that
I know.
guy.
I know Pribram.
Pribram. Dr. Roger Fouts, who's this hanging out in the grass. And then we got Saul Kitchener, the zoo lord.
The zoo lord? Yeah. Well, I have opinions on Saul Kitchener. Yeah. I think as do you. But the zoo lord, you can describe him if you want.
Right. I don't know. He's just he's a guy. He looks like he'd be a good character actor from popular HBO television programs. You know what I'm saying?
He says, "Hey, yo, we got a pizza pie down here," and he's like, "Well, gorilla's a gorilla. You know what's gonna let him live, huh?" Oh,
he's Oh, so we got some shots here of apes just chilling out in a car, going on a ride, which is like always money. I don't know if you've seen.
I liked that. Well,
have you seen that like those like YouTube clips? There's like that one gorilla driving around like the golf cart.
The orangutan.
Is it an orangutan?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Pongo pygmaeus, my man. That's a orangutan. He's riding slow and he's riding easy and he's driving the fuck out of that golf cart.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I love that. That's good stuff.
Just there's no music to it.
No, he's just chilling. Yeah. Orangutans are also super smart. They do they mimic humans a lot where people will leave out their washboards and stuff, and orangutans will go and they'll take the clothes and they'll like wash them on washboards, and they can like paint and shit. Orangutans are really smart too. They branched off just before gorillas in terms of the great apes, Jared.
Yes, the great apes.
In case you were wondering, we branched off at orangutans and then gorillas and then chimps. That's our phylogeny. The word for you, baby.
There you go.
This is 12 years of university education coming back on you.
Finally.
Well, we never talked about gorillas before.
That's true.
Other than King Kong, but
that's a monster ape. Forget about great apes.
Yeah, he's a monster ape, which is a whole other ball game.
Yeah, from Monster Island, John C. Reilly.
I do know John C. Reilly. Breakthrough role for him, almost, I think.
Yeah. And then we get some footage of kind of like learning, I guess. Kind of, it's like a demo for the filmmaker, for Schroeder, who's there with the cameraman, which we learn later. They're filming in secret because there's like a legal battle that's kind of happening because back shortly after Coco was born, we learned for the other documentary there was some issues between the
Yes.
the mama gorilla and baby gorilla, and there's like some separation there. But then I guess they started using it as a subject at that point at the zoo. But they were like, there was a period where this idea that humans and apes could communicate was sort of in vogue. And like there was a lot of different researchers all across the world, I'm assuming, that were doing these investigations. And it seemed like Petty Patterson's idea was like, well, there's only so much I can do here, but if there's other gorillas for the gorilla to interact with, the gorilla's always going to be distracted. And we're not going to actually be able to have that breakthrough. So it's like, well, let us take the subject away from this environment and make it so there's a focus on this. And of course, I mean, to me, as the film goes on, like there's these points where like, yeah, there's times where the gorilla is sad and like not very distracted and not that interested in what we're doing. I'm like, yeah, because it's boring. It's boring it's like you mistake like this behavior for like, oh, why are they interested in this thing? It's like, yeah, because they don't care. Because as soon as that gorilla goes outside, gorilla's happy. I mean, even if that gorilla's pounded on baby little Michael, the gorilla, and just wailing away, because you're just like, oh well, yeah, these things are really strong.
Yeah, two things about that. She never socialized, so she doesn't know the rules of rough and tumble play. Rough and tumble play is super important for those animals. Like that's how they learn like what to get like to do, right? So they need to actually play like kind of rough with each other, but when they're little babies, they learn the rules and they know when too much is too much. But gorillas are so strong. Same with chimps and orangutans. The muscle density is so much better than ours. Like I tell people this and they're like, that's not true. But it's like, yeah, it is. Like an orangutan, if they wanted to, it could rip your arm fucking off of your body. That's how strong these guys are. And everyone's like, no, that's not true. It's like, yeah, it is. It's like, why would I lie to you? They're incredibly fucking strong. Yeah. Look at how big they are. Yep. Like even chimps too. Chimps would fuck up your entire life if they wanted to. Just one chimp. One chimp.
Just bite your face off.
Oh yeah, rip it right off if they want. Yeah, they're good, mean boys,
but they're good dudes.
Yeah, they're cool. Good. Like there's nothing wrong with them.
But they also are wild animals. And clearly there's an understanding that but then you get the detail of like, oh hey, let's put the leash on. And they're walking around with the necklace. They describe it as. with the bolted lock on it. It's like, It's like, that's pretty heavy. I don't know how comfortable that is, but I don't know. That's quite the look.
Yeah, a collar with like a 4 or 5 foot. Well, actually more than 5, like a 6 to 10 foot like leash or something like that.
Which like
for this massive animal.
And if it wants to go. I mean,
it'll go.
Just today, I was going around for a walk around the lake after a little bit of taco time burrito action.
Oh,
I see. As I was walking around, there was a lot of people walking dogs, and they were all walking like sizable dogs, medium to large. And I was walking about. There was this couple with like kind of like a terrier that was just kind of like rolling around the grass a little bit earlier, and I'm like, oh, look at that. Good boy. And then I was like walking along and I saw up ahead, I saw this like, I don't know, 20-year-old girl. She looks like fairly good shape, athletic. She had like a big, not a mastiff, but not a Rottweiler, but one of those like
a Great Dane?
Not a Great Dane. Fairly like a big dog.
Okay.
And this dog started like really wanting to check out this terrier. And this girl was like using all the strength in her body to try to like stop the dog from doing that. And she was just being dragged along. And I'm like,
yeah, well, yeah, a dog will take you.
But I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what's the point of this? Like, you're just going for the ride. This thing's way stronger than you. It's like that's not a good thing. So that's like not a good balance. Because like, oh, I'll stop it. It's like, no, you won't.
Yeah, I mean, no, people can't stop dogs. And a gorilla, if a gorilla wanted, it could throw you into the sun. So like, you're not.
I must have skipped that page in my introducing gorillas to children books. It must have like the page that one got torn out of a gorilla throwing a man into the sun.
Well, Jarrett, you gotta understand. They're big animals. They're big dudes.
Oh.
So yeah, if a gorilla wanted to, it could throw you right into the fucking sun. Okay.
Right into the sun.
But no, they're super strong, and like the leash thing, it's figurative. But I have an idea of why it worked for Penny too, which I'll talk about when I get there. Yeah. But I have some opinions of Penny.
Oh, I bet you do. I bet you do.
There's one scene in particular.
Yeah.
Talk about.
Yeah. So then we get a scene making lunch from the fridge. You got the banana, you get some peanut butter. Coco gets to pick out what she wants.
I like that. She should be able to pick her own lunch.
Yep.
Yeah. Except Penny lives in that trailer's a mess, man.
Yeah.
It's hard for Coco to live there.
Yeah, I wasn't loving the arrangements, but it's like
it's not even Coco, which people would think.
Linoleum floors, the wood paneling, and the cages and stuff like that. Like
just like the African jungles.
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah, just like it.
Yeah. I mean, like, there's no plot to talk about. It's just kind of just I kind of did a reskim because I was just like, when I was watching it, I was actually just really engaged with it. And kind of just like watching it because I actually really do like this as a documentary. Not so much like, it's like people will have their opinions, I guess, on the content or the fact that this existed at all or the process of it, but I think this is like a really frank demonstration of what this is. It is like it is what it is. And then the subsequent documentary, the one, the BBC one, that's kind of more what people call like, oh, this is like the TV documentary that tells the story and the arc, because it has all the celebrity stuff when Coco becomes more of a celebrity in the outside world. So it's got the, where there's like the kitten, the baby kittens that Coco starts hanging out with, picking up little kittens and stuff like that. Very adorable. A book that becomes like a big seller in schools, and then the celebrities all start showing up. And it's always like the one that people mention is Robin Williams.
Robin Williams.
Yeah. Robin Williams with the
people like him
with the dad stash. He was he was also a very hairy man.
It's not the connection I was going for, but yes,
he was. He's like, look.
He is a hairy man.
He's a very hairy man.
Yeah.
He could have been the Beast. He could have been a beast.
Like Hank McCoy. Hank
McCoy Beast.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I understand. I gotcha.
Just paint him blue and let it ride.
You don't even have to paint him. Just leave him as is.
Oh, that'll be like the Kirby era Beast.
Just. Yeah, he could have worked. Pre blue.
Give him big hands and big feet.
Just he already had big hands too, so he pretty much fit. Yeah, he worked. But yeah, I've seen that
when not taking shits at comic book stores. This was he was hanging out with Coco one time.
People have to go back about 200 episodes to hear the delicate, private story of Jarrett's Robin Williams account. So I don't know which episode it is. You might as well start from our first episode and try to find it.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's there.
It's out there. Big. It's out there. I'm sure it was.
Oh, wow, Jarrett.
Come on. And then we get so there's little Michael,
Michael,
the little gorilla. That I guess the idea there is that, well, when Michael's older, because Coco is 7, I guess. When
Coco's 7 and Mike is like 4 or 5.
Yeah, which is a big difference. I mean, yeah, like humans, there's age differences. And it's it's like adolescence. It's like, I think, was it gorillas can start mating at 10?
Yeah, they hit the females are earlier, just like most species. So like sexual maturity Coco was there at like 7 or so, but they needed like 4 or 5 years for Mike, so he needed to be like 8 or 9 before that they could get it, and then she would have been older still. Yeah. But girls do have long lives, but I don't know. The longer you wait, the harder it is, right?
Yeah. Well, especially when you're a guest of Penny Patterson.
Yes, living in the trailer,
hanging
in your
out.
Cage.
You get out every once in a while.
Yeah, you get put on the leash. You get your necklace on.
You get hop in the car.
Hop in the car. Well, I liked when they were in the car because they were just chilling and there was no leashes or anything. So I did like when they were in the car. I thought that was cool.
In my notes here, I wrote I should have rewatched Project Nim. The documentary.
Project Nim?
Yep.
I know Secret of Nim. Is that the same thing?
It is not. They actually
that's about like mice and stuff.
Yeah, that's a different thing. Project Nim. That's actually the guy who shows up to blow the lid off of the bullshit of human animal communication. That's he was talking about because he had done these because he was part of the exact same study, but with chimpanzees.
Yes.
And so the reason I watched Project Nim back when in 2011 was because it's directed by James Marsh, who's done several really good documentaries like Man on Wire, and recently the biopic The Theory of Everything.
I know about that one. I know about that romance movie. But yeah. So I know that dude too, because his big thing was that it was just mimicry, right? And like leading, which is a big psych thing too. Like people can get or actually that's like a police thing too, right? Like prompting for leads, where it's like where you're leading them into something, which is like illegal for police, but they still do it, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I've got my issues with his interpretation,
his take,
because he's got that arrogant. Well, you know, it's just the science. You gotta call it how it is, which is like, I'm right, which is like, shut up, or maybe he's like not expressing well what.
He's not.
He's not expressing probably what he knows better than how it's depicted in this BBC documentary, saying that it was like, I mean, because you could say probably a lot about her thesis and like what the goals were there, and the fact that like that entire this has been abandoned. People don't do, or at least the way that they were doing it, and they don't do it anymore like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll get there. Note, sad gorilla. So there's always these comments like, oh, you know, she'll go sad. Oh, she's sad a lot. And you go, uh-huh.
You're like, oh, what are you going to do about it? And they go, hey, Coco, you want to watch TV? Put in one of your VHS tapes.
You want to look at some books? You'll show you to put on the tapes.
Uh-huh. Just like human people, right?
Just like, that's what human people do. They put on some tapes.
Put on some tapes. You know, when the kids are kind of driving you nuts, Jarrett, and you say, hey, just watch your stories. Give me an hour. Just watch some of the TV, right, Jarrett? Just put on your VHS TV.
There's a passage here where I don't know if it's Barbet Schroeder actually doing the narration, but the narrator starts talking about this idea about like, sorry, I got this wrong. So Penny Patterson starts talking about how, in reference to the zoo and the conflict about like property, which is an interesting thing, because this is, again, I think a interesting documentary in terms of a transition that we're still kind of working toward. I don't think we're that much beyond this point in terms of how we view animals as individuals. In a lot of countries, our country, for instance, it is one of those things that they just don't want to talk about. It's just like, let it go. It's because it'll impact industry. And we don't want that.
Yeah, no, I mean, that is 99% of the world. I did see something like there are a couple European countries that were giving like animals like human rights things basically, and not even just like, it wasn't like sentient animals. It was just like all animals had like certain rights or something like that. And it was like, that's good. That's a step in the right direction. A lot of apes do have those rights too, but only some places. So
yeah, having rights, I guess.
Having rights, yeah. You know, the basic humanity rights and.
Well, I mean, they're not human,
like
but they're not human rights. if they're
it's a gorilla. You gotta treat it like a gorilla.
It's having some rights, you know. I think there's enough to go around.
What about your rights?
Mine?
Yeah.
Oh, they're trampled upon every day.
Oh dear.
No, I'm doing just fine.
Nice.
So the cinematographer on this documentary, you know about Nestor Almendros? You know about this guy?
I thought it was just that dude who filmed everything.
No, he had a cameraman who's directed such film, or it's not directed, but he also shot such films as Days of Heaven.
Oh, so he was in Creepsville.
Kramer versus Kramer. That's right. Sophie's Choice.
Damn.
And another and General Lee Mean, and the Warren Oates film Cockfighter, which has got some real and Harry Dean Stanton, by the way. But it's got some full on. That's got some real animal violence.
Yeah.
Oh. Fascinating. Nestor Almendros, also cinematographer for a whole bunch of Eric Rohmer films.
Eric Rohmer?
Yeah.
Not in my house.
Claire's Knee.
Not in my house, buddy.
Oh, yeah.
No way.
So we're going to see more of this Nestor camera work.
Will we, though?
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Shit.
Well, so what else have I got here? Oh, there's this passage where Penny's responding to this idea of the property, and she starts talking about how Coco, the gorilla, was born in America.
Mm-hmm.
And so in my mind I was like, Coco, gorilla, American. She's the citizen of America.
My favorite screenshot, as I told you, is will Coco become the first white American Protestant gorilla? And you go, what?
Wow, that goes into this idea, because there is like a pretty extended sequence in the middle of this documentary where it's Penny admonishing Coco for being bad. Mm-hmm. And you're like, I don't know how this is going. Like it is like basically watching a parent admonish their, like, you know,
their kids,
their 3-year-old that can't communicate really in a way that a human would process this exchange, but they're trying. It's bizarre. It is. There is.
Well, it's kind of like, you know, when like a 4-year-old like knocks over a cup of water and you call him a stupid piece of shit and you hit him a bunch and you're just like, why can't you hold the water? And they're like, I trying, and you're like, learn how to talk, and you punch them.
Is that your parenting book? Is that what chapter is that?
That's what I believe the Penny parenting book is from.
Oh,
because there's the one scene where she's talking about her being bad, where she very clearly just like Coco just very clearly wants to like be out of the trailer, and Penny's like, you're being so bad, and then she's like, okay, cut, and then
was she telling the cameraman to cut?
She tells the cameraman to cut, and then in the next scene, Coco is kind of like sulked in the corner. You know what happened in there? Penny was beating the shit out of Coco. Allegedly.
Well, that's a bold claim. It's a bold claim.
Something happened.
There was going
it
was going to be whatever it was something that up to that point she wouldn't want to be on camera anymore, or the situation was devolving to a point where she felt like she wasn't in control anymore.
Yeah. And
she wanted the camera to no longer be involved with the dog. It's like, you know, when like you mentioned earlier, police officers, you know, when they turn off their body cam and they go, sorry, it malfunctioned.
Yep. And I think the very telling thing about that situation is in the very next scene, we have the narration that goes, gorillas are incredibly strong. Equal weight to Coco is equal weight to Penny. And in gorilla society, there is a hierarchy of dominance. And if Penny didn't establish the dominance, there's a likelihood that Coco could injure or hurt Penny. So they have a rationale built into the documentary for it. And it's like, yes, animals do, like gorillas do have hierarchies in their like social groups. But they're trying to rationalize where it's like, okay, cut, and then it comes back, and you're like,
Well, they don't tiptoe around
wonder
it
what
too
happened.
much. Well, because later, like when they're outside, and when there's the scene where Coco and Michael, Coco's getting very aggro on Michael. There's a bit where I think Penny just slaps Coco.
She does.
Across the, like,
she does.
and it's like, whoa. But I don't know. I feel like Coco was probably fine.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
it's like, yeah. I mean, whatever. It's kind of like a shocking thing. You're just like, you're not supposed to do that. But I mean, I'm not working. I'm not working with this Coco. I don't know.
You could be.
I'm not. That is. I'll leave that one to the pros, or maybe not. Maybe we shouldn't be mucking about. But that's neither here nor there.
Maybe
the past is the past. So. So the documentary, I mean, it feels out of date, but also really timely. And there's like these observations. Like, I do think that Barbet Schroeder, I think in subsequent kind of interviews, talks about how Coco's behavior really did change, and she was very aware that there was like a cameraman. I mean, whether or not she understands what that means, but it's kind of like attention.
She was aware that there was something there that wasn't normally there, right?
Right, and enjoyed it because it was like, oh, this is cool. It's another person. Like, this is fun. And like, I believe Barbara Schroeder's like talked about Coco as a ham, and would perform.
Yes.
In those scenarios. And so it's, I think like Barbara Schroeder's, I just loved looking at Coco. Coco's one of the great performers, like Marlon Brando.
Of course.
Of course, Marlon Brando.
Yeah, of course. In what's that movie? The Score?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, directed by Frank
Marlon
Oz.
Brando in The Score.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. One and the same.
Yeah. There's the one bit too, kind of like toward the end, these like solid moments where it's like, if someone killed Coco, legally it wouldn't be murder. And you go,
yes,
yeah, and it is, and it's like that's like a really interesting observation to have in your documentary. That I guess like is like I've read, we'll see in the Who Hates This. People talk about this is just like a PR thing for the Gorilla Foundation, and this is like promoting this, and I'm kind of like, I don't know. I feel like it's got this is about a person that I think really cares about this animal.
Yeah,
and like
yeah,
is really fascinated with it, and it's like this is like these are amazing creatures, and there's like this whole other realm that's kind of just touched upon in this, because I think maybe it was obvious maybe in 1978, but it's like, no, gorillas are being killed for sport, for food, poaching, and like, yeah, they're just being killed, like, and they're going to get wiped out, and this is kind of like a raising awareness around it, and using the subject of like, hey, maybe like if you have to try to justify the existence of an animal to people, and the shift of consciousness isn't coming quick enough in terms of like viewing animals as worthy, I guess you have to like kind of go off this idea like, hey, they can communicate with us, they are intelligent, and you have to like go along with that, because to this day there are people who are just like, they do not think that humans are part of nature. They think that they forget that all the time, because like I'm not sure if it's necessarily a religious thing. There's definitely feeds into the dominion over everything. Now there's that, but I think honestly, I think people who know better completely don't think about themselves as animals. They think there is this hierarchy that continues on, even for people who know better, including scientists who study these things, because there's a lot of egregious claims kind of thrown out there about language and like what it is, and I don't know. I'm not thinking about this maybe in the way that a linguist would be talking about, like when I was watching the Foucault-Chomsky debate, he was talking about like what kind of separates humans, I guess, from other things is our ability to be creative, and he doesn't mean that like to make art. He's talking about like the ability to like conceptualize. I think he has a very specific way that he uses that word that is confusing, I guess, which maybe means it's maybe not the greatest term, but it's one that's useful for when he is a linguist, which I mean that's a long time ago, and I imagine there's been improvements or leaps in the science of language since 1978 here, or like 1969, when he was in his, I guess, heyday and sort of a political figure. But yeah, there's these things like this idea of like what language is defined as, and I'm like, well, yeah, they're communicating. It's like cats communicate with people. Like, they're very smart. Like, like there's like all these things, and you look up lists of like what are the smartest animals, and it's like what are we measuring this up to and by? And like very clearly, there's things where like you can see like donkeys. Donkeys are really smart. I mean, it doesn't stop people from treating them like shit though. Like people that like who are around them all the time, but it's all sometimes these weird forced interactions that people have had where they have to kind of dismiss those things to get things accomplished. But they do that with human beings as well. But
see, I think intelligence is a weird thing, right? Because like people use that word in a very strange way, where it's just like, just because we do things in a certain way doesn't mean that we have a greater intelligence than other animals. Like, I mean, the way like whales use like the way they can tap into like certain frequencies of things for like navigation, that's something we can't do. The way like elephants can find water with their like underground, that's something we can't do. Octopuses, the way they camouflage, that's something we can't do. And it's like, is that intelligence?
Well,
I think intelligence is kind of a made up thing, right? Like,
well, Lyle Lanley.
Yeah.
Well, as he once said, a town with money is a little like the mule with the spinning wheel. No one knows how he got it, and danged if he knows how to use it.
Danged if he knows how to use it.
And here you could take money with intelligence.
Well, yeah, exactly, right? Like
exactly. That's why you got to build the monorail. That's what I'm saying.
Monorail. Yeah, I've always found that a strange thing where it's like, well, we do this the best. It's like, listen, I'm gonna make some fucking ribs and buffalo tenders that are gonna blow your ain right out. That's my intelligence. And and they're like, can an animal do that? Can a gorilla make a cheeseburger? And you're like, do they need to? It's like they're doing their own thing, man. They're doing something different. But Coco, she eats cheeseburgers just like every other American.
But do they have faith of the heart? That's the real question.
They do not. But also gorillas are herbivores, right? Like they don't normally eat meat. So
well, as I noted, the best line of the film for me was let me find it here. I don't know if you saw me.
I saw.
Yes. Coco eats hamburgers and takes vitamins like any American child.
Yeah, no, I saw that. It was like the white Protestant American thing. They really tried to Americanize her, but like even so, it's like, well, every American kid drinks Sunny D, because Sunny D is the thing that's really there for you, and you're just like, is that good? You're like,
what might stimulate the brain a little bit is some electrolytes.
Well, you can get electrolytes in a lot of ways.
One thing that was not maybe developed enough between the two documentaries though was Coco's nipple fixation.
Well, what it was Coco wanted a baby, and she knew that there was something about feeding, right? And it's like, I don't know, I feel bad for Coco, but I mean, you're the same way.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know if you on Wikipedia there's an entry called nipple fixation. Coco was reported to have a preoccupation with both male and female human nipples, with several people saying that Coco requested to see their nipples. In 2005, 3 female staff members at the Gorilla Foundation, where Coco resided, filed lawsuits against the organization, alleging that they were pressured to reveal their nipples to Coco by the organization's executive director, among other violations of labor law. The lawsuits were settled out of court. Gorilla expert Kristen Lucas has said that other gorillas are not known to have had a similar nipple fixation, and this has 7 citations.
Come on, Jarrett. No.
Yeah.
Come on.
But yeah, so I mean,
Yeah.
I actually I really did like this in terms of like watching this, particularly in light of the night before watching this animal documentary called The Animal World, which is only to be viewed, I think, for the Ray Harryhausen effects during the dinosaur sequence. But we'll be talking about Ray Harryhausen in a couple more weeks. But outside of that, I'm not sure. Did you watch much of the Animal World documentary, or did you?
I watched most of it.
Okay, so it's such a, I don't know, watching Coco, a talking gorilla, right after watching the Animal World just made like that documentary, like the Coco documentary, so much more interesting on top of it, because the Animal World is 1956, grounded in this, like, I don't know, 1950s elementary school textbook mindset of the world of man does things, and and just like it's about, you know, man doesn't really want to have to go out and hunt the puma that's killing his cattle, but he will. But oh yeah, here's some other footage of him fucking up animals and hunting elephants for some reason. There's no explanation of the gains of this other than, well, you know, they might be running into a little spot of trouble as they might get wiped out. Anyways, here's us hunting some whales. You want us harpooning the whale now? You go, fuck, I hate this. Like, it's like, I just want to go back to like the dinosaur bit. But even that, like the voiceover narration and all the cutesy little, like, giving the animals little personalities and going, oh, making them laugh and stuff like that is like, man, this is real aimed at kids. But it also pits everything as like arch enemies. The arch enemy of the Brontos, or of the Triceratops, the Tyrannosaurus Rex. And he's like, why? Why are they arch enemies?
So like what was I gonna say? I forgot to put my review of it, but this reminded me a lot of like, it was like an America's Funniest Home Video, because they were like doing voices for the animals. It'd be like a fish and be like, I gotta get out of here, and it would like run away. And I was like, what is this? Like, what is this weird comedy stuff? So yeah, it was a strange one. Jared. A strange one, to be sure. We are also kind of coincidentally watching the Barack Obama nature doc that it's called like Our National Parks or something.
Yes.
So it's we're getting current 2022 like nature docs type stuff, and I've always really liked like, I'm a big Planet Earth guy. Like, I've always really liked those things. Nature docs are awesome. They're super cool. So
there's good ways of doing it, and not so good. You gotta love those David Attenborough.
If he's there, you're good.
Yeah,
you're good.
Yeah, always don't you always love the last parts of these where it's like, and everything's gonna die soon because humanity's the worst.
Yep.
That's like everyone's book ended with, yup, all the wonderful things you've just seen. Bye. But we shot it with that, you know, I don't know, 300 millimeter telescopic lens, and it's like, it's the first time we've ever seen a lynx with its cubs in history. But it's a good thing we got this covered before it's all over,
because they're almost dying
or something like that. Yeah, great.
I know.
I loved his Life in the Undergrowth one's my favorite. That's the one about the bugs, about the insects.
Oh, I hate the bug ones.
I love them.
I hate the bug ones.
They're so cool.
Some of the bird ones are the coolest, because birds have really crazy like behaviors. Like their mating courtship stuff is like nuts. So some of the bird stuff I think is pretty cool.
Nice. So
pretty cool.
Cinema. So anyway, I kind of mentioned before. Yeah. So then I sent along to you the BBC documentary, because I think and I didn't know until watching it, but I'm like, oh, I'm really glad that we watched this as well, because it does actually encompass more like actual information and clarify some things that I think the Schroeder documentary just kind of leaves out. But we actually didn't talk about Saul Kitchener too much, the zookeeper, the zoo lord, because he made like he I don't know, whether or not
he makes interesting
he makes
points,
some interesting points.
He does some of them in the wrong way, if that makes sense.
Well, I mean, like, I think the most interesting one that straight up is like, you can't teach a gorilla like good and bad. It's like a gorilla's not good or bad. It's just a gorilla.
Mm-hmm. Well, and so like he has,
which is also true of like everything. But I mean, these are again bigger issues, I guess, and also just the entire. I mean, not even getting into the potential issues of just like the endeavor of science itself.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's a big part of it, but yeah, like I mean, some of his points are right, where he's just like, she's a gorilla, she should live with other gorillas, and if she doesn't, that's kind of bad. And you're like, yeah, I understand that. And then some of his other stuff, you're kind of like, he's like, oh, we got to do this to the gorilla, get him back, and you're like, You're like, some of your ideas are good. Some of what you're saying is potentially not quite there, but he's got some decent ideas on what's happening.
But yeah, I mean, it boils down to for me anyway, that this science experiment happened, and by the end of it, it's like, well, how do we change course, or what do we do with this now? And we basically went up with Coco being the topic that we're talking about here in 2022, 50 years after Coco was born, and it is what it is. Like it's just kind of a matter of it's kind of like, it's worth talking about still, because clearly humans and animals. Both animals are going to be navigating each other's spaces for a long time. Mostly humans have to figure out how to navigate that, because animals are just going to animal around. I mean, every goddamn summer, we're heading into summer season. There's going to be humans blown away bears soon, because bears are going to be hungry and they're looking for food, and suddenly it's like, uh-oh, that's a bear, better kill it quick. And it's like,
it's a solution to a lot of problems, eh?
Yep. And I mean, even in 1978, it's like, they didn't seem to think that was the right solution either. Because it's like,
I don't know,
but that's where we're headed. So, anyways, I think this is a really important document, I guess, that people should watch if they're interested in the subject matter. But other than that, RJ, what did you think? What did you think of Coco, a Talking Gorilla?
I think Coco is also an important documentary. I find it's incredibly problematic, but for reasons that are specific to me, which we kind of talked about a little bit. But I do think it is incredibly important, and I do think it is, like you said, like at a certain point, like there was a thing where it was basically just like, how do we like get people to understand that animals are important and have feelings and have consciousness in their own right.
Yep.
And it's like, the only way we can do that is to try to humanize them in a sense that people can relate to it, which is the big problem, right? Where it's just like, we should be able to kind of see past that, where it's like, you shouldn't have to try to make it seem like you for you to be able to relate. But that's human nature completely. It's not even just animals. It's like other people too. Like, people need things that are similar to them for them to like actually care about it. And you're like, I get it. And that's kind of a problem with like humans in general, where it's like, can't you just care about this other person, even if they're different from you, but because they're a living thing? But that's a really hard thing for people to think about, because evolutionarily, Jarrett, we are selfish because of self-instinct and survival, and it's like the need to try to self-preservate. And you're just like, well, you have that, but it's like, if people think that they're this kind of like enlightened, like higher being, it's like, shouldn't you possess the qualities that go past that because you have awareness of it? But I don't know. That's a conversation for the big boys, not for me.
That's a conversation for Star Trek episodes on Patreon.
Yes, that is. Do we kill Worm Clone Trip, or do we not kill Worm Clone Trip? That's a morality question, my man, and that's some serious heavy shit. But yeah, like, so I understand why this needs to exist in a certain way. It's because, yeah, people do need things to relate to, or else they can't they can't feel it, which is too bad. But I knew about Coco long time, and as I said before, like, I really liked animal behavior, so I did a ton of classes on it. Like, I'm not an expert or anything like that, but I did a lot because I just liked it. So I learned a lot about primates and like other animals, and it's like I was saying earlier, I always found it weird, like this intelligence thing, because what other animals do is so much like surpassed what we have the ability to do, and it's just like, well, it's like they just everything just does things that are different. Like, intelligence isn't the key, and people are like, well, we have cars and cell phones, and you're just like, yeah. But, well, I mean, we can't do things other animals do.
I do want to say, though, because I find it interesting that because you do say kind of like how what animals do is superior to what people do, but I would still frame that as it's different.
It's different. It's not like, I just think animals are inherently better in certain ways because people annoy me, but yeah, it's a different kind of thing, right? Like what like a dolphin does and how they live is different from how people live. It's not like a measure of intelligence. It's different. And like, they have self-recognition. They have like, they're conscious beings too. They're sentient, and we've proven that. So it's like, they know they're alive. They know they're dolphins. They know who they are. They just do things differently. They have like a different life. They have a different world. So yeah, I don't think not necessarily that animals are better in that sense. I just think animals are better in general sense because I think people are bad, kind of a thing.
Well, one of my dudes, Ligotti, he wrote a little book called "Conspiracy Against the Human Race." It talks about how the conspiracy is that consciousness that we got gets us into all kinds of trouble. And then it's like maybe living in blissful ignorance of that, maybe life is the problem in itself. And, and it's what introduces us to the horrors of the world at all. So it's like maybe the animals have got the right idea. I mean, it's like, and it'd be like a real travesty to introduce an animal to self-awareness and sadness, and it's like, maybe we should knock that off.
Well, and see, like, that's I agree with that too, but like and like, that's what I mean. It's like, it's weird because it is it's kind of different. Like, so dolphins have self-recognition, elephants have self-recognition, and like awareness too. So like, dolphins, like in captivity, like if they put
Darwin
like a smudge
from Sequest.
Darwin from Sequest, exactly. If they put like a smudge on its head and then they let him out and they'll like see it in the reflection, they'll try to like rub it off because they know their reflection, so they're like conscious too. It's kind of a weird thing, but elephants have that also, and I don't know, probably bugs. No, bugs don't have any feelings or emotions. What was I saying? Anyway, so I know why they do things a certain way, but it does this so I do like this documentary because I do think it's important to see animals in different light. But this documentary bums me out incredibly because of how sad I think it is for Coco, because it's like the zookeeper saying, it's like, she wants to be outside, she wants to be a gorilla, and it's like, yeah, she does, and like in all of her interactions
with a family, like with
she wants to be with other girls, and that's where the Congo thing comes into play, actually. But she wants to be outside, and like all of her things are like, let's go outside, and they're like, oh, watch a movie, Coco, and it's just like, holy fuck. It's like, let her outside, man, let her off that leash, build her a catio or something, which they do eventually. But yeah, it bums me out a lot, and especially because even though like the animal research stuff, it's like, yeah, they taught her how to sign, she can communicate. It's like, there's other ways you can do it, and I know it was a different time, but it bums me out, especially because as you mentioned earlier, this is the kind of stuff that I was doing, but there was a reason I left it too, right? Because it's like,
this is
like, I don't think it's worth it.
This depicts like a kind of a little bit of a window. It's like, oh, at least they're not, dismembering Coco.
Yes. Yes, which that happens frequently.
That already, because that already had happened when they were like, "Hey, let's check out, let's see what happens. Let's check with that gorilla brain." Mm-hmm. Just start picking about. I mean, they did do that to people for a window of time.
We did that to people for a while too. Mm-hmm. Yep, that's like how they discovered how long the intestines were. They're like,
let's find out.
Crack that dude open, and they're like, "What's all this weird shit? Let's pull this apart." And
the body's not just made of 4 humors.
And you go, "Whoa!" You're like, "What's all this goop?" And
well, I mean, even though it's like people have been being blown apart for a long time and split open, it's like there's a bunch of stuff in there. It's just kind of a random assortment.
Check it out.
I am looking up the top 10 smartest animals. Orangutans, number 1.
It's like I said before, I don't know if I've ever mentioned this, but orangutans are my favorite. Pongo pygmaeus. Yeah. Because of Dunstan Chekson, which was a movie I couldn't watch now because I know of the harsh treatment of orangutans in Hollywood previously.
We gotta watch some of that Clint Eastwood action.
Smart. I know, I have it. I have the double pack, but I can't watch it because it's going to bum me out because I learned all that stuff about how the trainer of the orangutan would like beat them viciously, and it's like, I can't watch that anymore. Mm-hmm. But yeah, orangutans are super smart. You know who else is really smart? Crows. Where are they on that list?
They are number 8.
Number 8? Yeah, crows are super smart.
We'll throw back to your thoughts on this, but I wanted to... So number 2, bottlenose dolphins. Number 3, chimpanzees. Yeah. Number 4, elephants. Number 5, the African gray parrot. Octopi.
Yes,
because they can solve all kinds of troubles. And of course, the one that makes me angrier than probably a lot of things pigs. That one makes me so mad because it's just like, what the fuck? And just
I know.
It's like, I know. It's like, oh, poor pigs. Why do you taste so good? It's like you.
Well, some would say that it's other white meat.
Knock it off. Yeah. Well, we're the long pigs.
Yes.
Well, so right below. So yeah, of course, pigs, which are like they're the cutest and bestest. Crows, followed by pigeons.
Pigeons are pretty smart. Yeah, there's a lot of smart birds.
And number 10, you know them, you love them, rats.
Oh my God, I think rats are smarter than pigeons, to be very, very clear.
I'm sure it's neither here nor there. I'm sure it's like hair splitting, according to azanimals.com.
Yeah, I agree with most of those. Rats are definitely smarter than that. But yeah, like crows are super smart. Crows and like scrub jays have like they have tool use, but then they also do things like they have concepts of time where it's like a lot of what people used to say was like, well, the one thing humans have that animals don't is time. And it's like, that's not true, because birds have concepts of time where it's like they'll cache like food that will go bad, and if you withhold them from going back to it and they know it's gone bad, they won't go back to it. They'll go to the other food that they know isn't bad. So like they have a concept of like a rough concept of time. Birds are super smart. Yeah. And I've said many times, which I know is aggravating to people, but octopus and pigs are incredibly smart. And like that's the one thing, like I'm actually trying to cut down on my pork because it's just like pigs are too smart. And the only problem is I love like sausage and like pepperonis and things. And I know there's like
you could eat. You could eat other types of sausages, but
I know. But I love
RJ, then there's bacon, and then
I know.
I
know. I'm trying to cut back on that, but yeah, pigs are super smart, which is a bummer. Dolphins are smart, but I would never. Everyone wants to swim with dolphins. Don't ever do that. They rape people like crazy. And they're incredibly aggressive.
And I quote, "Don't swim with dolphins. They rape people like crazy."
There's even so much so that there's even a King of the Hill episode where Hank gets sexually assaulted by a dolphin.
Yeah.
So I just flat out wouldn't do it. Okay. Mm-hmm. Just my advice. I would never swim with a dolphin because they'd get you.
I think on this list, I mean, yeah, pigs. I think elephants are so cool because they have graveyards.
Yes,
it's like
they do. Well, they mourn their dead, like, and they'll have a whole thing where it's like an entire group, like a tribe of elephants, will come and they'll basically sit around like the dead elephant for like a week or two because they bury it because they mourn their dead. So elephants are incredibly unique as well.
But what about all that ivory they've got?
So here's something crazy.
What?
So I saw that. Sorry, we were glitching a little. Something crazy about elephants. There's like a natural selection, like in real time going on with them, where a lot of new male elephants
don't grow ivory.
They don't grow their tusks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't
because
make
yeah. The ones who don't have tusks don't get poached, and they're the ones who keep reproducing. And so it's just like, yeah, a lot of the new male elephants, like they're tuskless because of poachers, man. Which is a bummer.
No.
So yeah, interesting stuff. I do think it's important, but yeah, it does bum me out just because of, I think animal behavior in general is not worth it. If that makes sense. Yeah,
well, I mean, that's the thing with science, though, with like the I don't know, the science class, I guess, is that what is worth it? And it's always these things like mating habits of crickets. And it's like, and you're like, oh, yeah, I mean, you don't know what's going to come of it, I guess, but I don't know that, but that's like, that's the history of scientific endeavors.
Science.
We'll figure that out. We'll figure that out later. It's like, should you? It's not. Yeah, it's like, again, it always comes back to the cliche. It's like, should you do that?
Should you?
Because it's there.
Well, it's like, yeah, we learned a lot of stuff, like even like Harry Harlow's attachment stuff with like the monkeys and like the terry cloth mothers. It's just like, yeah, we learned a lot about like how emotions are formed, but you just tortured a ton of animals for nothing, and it's just like, was that worth it? I don't know. I don't think so. Like yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that just kind of drives me crazy, where it's like, because I was involved in it, it's just like, it's not worth it. And I tell people that it's like, I've told you my idea before, but the only time we should be doing testing is on human convicts who are serving life sentences. And here's the catch: they sign consent that they're willing to do it, because that's the one thing animals don't have is consent.
Why do they have to be criminals?
Well, or because if they're serving life sentences already.
RJ, life isn't the dirty dozen. It isn't a Suicide Squad.
If they're serving a life sentence already, then you say, hey, listen, we're going to try this crazy experiment on you, but you might die. And then they'll go, yeah, no problem. I'll sign off. And they're like, if you're alive, we'll give you a TV.
Yeah, that won't encourage any bad behavior from bad actors. Be like, hey, we got to get more convictions, if you know what I'm saying. Let's find things to make crimes. We need more subjects. Yeah,
we already have lots of that.
Sign this paper over here, please. No,
it's
RJ.
just my idea. Okay?
I know it's your idea, and it's a bad one. I'm just telling you.
What about just humans in general that sign off consent?
I don't know.
To be tested on.
Or we just stop, RJ. We just stop.
Yeah, we don't need to live to 120. We already got enough science. We're done.
Look at all the problems we're running into. People can live longer. They can work at their jobs longer, and really
continue working until they're 80 and dying.
We're gonna have We're gonna have these unacknowledged issues about bottlenecks of us as we live longer and longer.
Yes.
It's like, is it a life worth living when you're like, you have no money?
Not usually.
It's like, oh, good. And it's like, and it's not like it sure doesn't seem like society's in any mad rush to take care of you when you're old. In fact, it's like, what's that? 10 of you are dying a week from a preventable disease with social, like, with responsible policy. Nah.
You say no problem.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah.
So anyways, do you want to hear about Congo?
Absolutely.
So I saw Congo once when I was a little kid.
Why did you watch Congo? It's my fault because I told you.
You encouraged
I
it.
said, hey, Michael Crichton, that was his starting place, inspired by the story of Coco.
Yeah, you encouraged it, so I had to watch it.
He's a science guy, or he was a science guy. He's dead now.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so he was a big science guy, and Michael Crichton's good stuff. Like, a lot of scientists are like, yeah, Michael Crichton, like, actually, like, did research and consulted on all of his stuff. So, like, he wasn't just making shit up, like, out of nowhere. But I haven't seen Congo in a very, very long time. I saw it when I was a little kid, and it scared the absolute shit out of me so bad because of the white gorillas that are just, like, ripping dudes' arms off in this movie. It was so scary, Jarrett. You'd shit your pants. That's how scary this movie is. This movie, I didn't realize, is fucking stacked with actors.
All those the guys. That guy. It's that guy.
Like, so, like, Joe Pantoliano, you know him. Delroy Lindo, the guy who plays Echo, Mr. Echo in Lost. Then you all have, like, John Hawkes, Laura Linney, Ernie Hudson, Tim Curry, Bruce Campbell, Jarrett, like this, Jimmy Buffett. They're all in here. This movie is fucking stacked with actors, and like every time a new person was on, I was like, holy shit, this guy's in here too. So this actually has a couple crossovers with Barbet Schroeder because there's some real Idi Amin Dada vibes in this as well from some of the characters because they have to interact with the government a little bit. So I won't tell you too much about Congo. Big corporation wants to find this diamond mine in Congo, and there is a animal researcher guy who has a gorilla named Amy who they've taught to sign, and they hook her up with a backpack that like makes as she signs, it monitors it and it generates the voice, right, and it talks for her. So he's trying to just take her back to Africa, to the Congo, and then all these people kind of piggyback on it because it's their like in to sneak past the government so they can go get this diamond mined or whatever. So they go there, and then when they get there, they find out it's like a shrine, and the indigenous people there trained gorillas as like the sentinels, like the guardians of it, and so they're super aggressive and they kill people. And Amy's there. So the reason this does kind of connect into Coco is because it's based on Coco, but there is two things. One thing that's incredibly sad, and then one thing that Michael Crichton corrected for all of humanity. So there's a scene where Coco sees other gorillas and she tries to sign to them, and they don't know what she's doing and they leave, and then Amy's super sad, and then someone walks by and it's like, she doesn't really fit in anywhere, huh? Does she? And you go, oh man, that's really sad, especially right after watching Coco, because you're like, Coco doesn't fit in anywhere either, and you're like, that's super sad. But then Michael Crichton does the right thing, and he corrects history, where in the end of this movie,
Michael Crichton himself, he has nothing. He had nothing to do with this movie.
Well, I imagine his story. Frank Marshall, the man who brought us arachnophobia,
the screenwriter John Patrick Shanley, who wrote this. Michael. I was kind of reading about Michael Crichton's involvement. Why? Because I've read that book. Because when this movie was coming out in theater, I was stoked because this was that post Jurassic Park glow of Michael Crichton, where it's like, he can do no wrong. What's that? They're going to do a version of Eater of the Dead, but it's 13th Warrior with Antonio Banderas, and it's kind of like a Beowulf type of thing. Incredible, but it wasn't.
And then Congo.
And I bought that book and I read that book, and the whole time I was like, I don't think this is very good. Oh, you know what John Patrick Shanley has also written?
Oh, I know.
We're Back. A dinosaur story. But he also wrote and directed Joe versus the Volcano.
I see that.
Which is quite a good movie.
Yeah.
And Alive. He also wrote screenplay.
Which Frank Marshall also directed, and he also directed Arachnophobia, which is a John Goodman classic.
Right.
Classic.
After the success of the first great train robbery, Crichton decided to write a screenplay specifically for Sean Connery as the character of Charles Monroe, an archetypal, quote, great white hunter, akin to H. Rider Haggard's hero, Alan Quatermain.
Alan Quatermain from the
League of Extraordinary
Gentlemen.
That's right. He was ahead of the curve. Yes. Ahead of the curve.
It's a good movie too.
The film was envisioned as a homage to classic pulp adventure tales, and Crichton successfully pitched the movie to 20th Century Fox. Wow, in 1979, without a fleshed out story. However, the film ran into problems when Crichton learned that he could not use a real gorilla to portray the character of Amy, which led him to leaving the project. From there, it was offered to several directors, including Steven Spielberg and John Carpenter, who both declined. A brief attempt was made to revive the project in the late 1980s, but to no avail. Eventually, Frank Marshall directed the film with little, if any, involvement from Crichton.
I think that's fine. If they used a real gorilla, it'd just be another movie that you look back on and go, that's kind of a bummer. I think it's better that they didn't use a real gorilla.
No.
Yeah. So whoever did, I don't know if it's the ending of the book or the ending of the movie, but in the ending, Amy does get to stay in Africa, and I think that's the right call. That's what you want to have happen to Coco, and it doesn't happen. So
nope.
They corrected history at the end of this one, if that makes sense. Amy has martinis and she smokes cigars and stuff, so she's super cool, man. She's lit, as the kids would say.
No. But and so what else? I kind of go back to the thing I was saying about watching the PBS airing the BBC thing. The end of this though, because Coco's still living with Penny Patterson and her partner. There's just a sort of like, they're still going about the day and, making birthday cakes and having her blow out the candles. And like, there's this overarching sadness though, because despite efforts, I guess, of some kind, Coco just never gets to have a child of her own, despite wanting to have one for her entire existence, essentially, that we've in her filmed existence of holding these little dolls and the kittens and all these things over and over and over again, but that's all she wanted, and she never got to have that. And that's like this thing where it's like, even like, I don't know, Penny Patterson still kind of remains sort of an elusive figure, at least between these two documentaries. But there's like a real sadness, I guess, of like not like it is like she's, because herself is childless, and then basically Coco basically just becomes like dominates her entire life. Basically, it's like having an adult child that you have to care for, and it's like, this is what she really wants, and I can't give it to her because I've also created this situation, and this is sort of this what it is, I guess. So I don't know, I think that's like a pretty, it's like a sad but kind of a bittersweet kind of note, in terms of just like, that's kind of what a lot of people do in all their lives, and nothing as spectacular as a talking gorilla to have your story being told along with that happened. But it's like it happens to a lot of anonymous lives.
I mean, like, what are you gonna do after, after this? I mean,
after the podcast. I believe there's some stop motion animation that needs to be viewed, because you know what? Someone has to do it. Podcasts must be recorded.
I know.
You want to hear from some people who hated this movie? I will say that there's no big dunks on this.
That's good.
It's mostly people just like have issues with it. So these are definitely a little bit more somewhat thoughtful.
Okay, that's good.
Hates. So first of all, let's bump up the size of this font. These are actually quite lengthy. I don't know if I should read all of these.
You do like two.
Yeah. So we got Film from Men.
I gotta stop you before you even start, because I just saw this. Dude's talking about monkey a lot. Gorillas aren't monkeys.
Correct. That is correct, RJ. We'll get there. Don't you worry. 1.5 stars from Film from Men. Coco is a gorilla who lives with a young Stanford scientist who also wants to show that monkeys can communicate. So every day, the monkey learns sign language, or tries to learn sign language. For the researcher says thanks and does something about her hand, the monkey in turn says, ooh. The researcher holds out a candy and shows how to hold his hand. And in the end, and in the end, the monkey does the same and gets his candy. This person didn't really pay attention very much. Wow,
they did not.
She can say thanks. What? I'm doubtful. So even though this is a single bit commercial for Coco, I feel quite unconvinced that she can. Now she's saying she can sign more than one dog. Interspersed with Coco scenes, you get to see clips of researchers who tries to connect this with some scientific value. This could prove evolution. Doubtful, and whatever. It is still only idiots who do not believe in evolution, and they will not change their mind due to some hippie experiments. I got quite annoyed when she finally teaches the monkey to understand bad monkey, as she says several times, especially when Coco steals a walnut. Bad monkey. And in the end, Coco also makes the sign for it. So either Coco just makes a few moves and doesn't understand the characters, or she understands the characters and denigrates herself because she ate a walnut that lay nearby. Bad whatever. Monkeys are monkeys, and to experiment on them to make them more like humans is both unnecessary, stupid, and mean. Oh yeah, one thing we didn't talk about, RJ, was Conquest of the Planet of the Apes.
Oh, Jarrett. Oh, baby. You know that's the best of the
best
Planet of the Apes. It's the best. It's so...
Wow,
that
the first one's...
prison stairs?
The first one's perfect, but Conquest is aces.
It's so... The prison stairs in the intro. So good.
Monkeys on chains. Oh, the apes. The apes on chains, RJ.
I love it.
Poor Coco needed to be with other monkeys and not become an experiment monkey. Barbet Schroeder should have had a more questioning attitude towards the project. It would have made a better film. I don't know. I'm not going to hold Barbet Schroeder on that one. I think he set out to make the film that he did. And it is what it is. It was exactly, it's like a presentation of it being like, he had questions, and it's there. There's a critique, and it's very low-key, but it's 100% there. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. This person has a few things, but mostly they don't even know that apes aren't monkeys.
I think a lot of people make that mistake. I probably do it all the time too.
I know.
We just say you're not going to make a monkey out of me.
I know.
Simpsons reference number 2.
Well, for the night, it's like third or fourth almost. We had Esquilax, we had monorail. We had the taxes. So
it's always but I mean the taxes is just in the Esquilax. Those are
that's preamble.
Yeah.
What was I gonna say? Dude said something that he's like, it's not gonna convince anyone of evolution. I don't think it's trying to. I don't think that's the point of this. I think it's trying to show that animals are conscious living beings and that they deserve certain rights as well.
And I do think that by the there's that footage though, like when you actually see Penny and Coco conversing, they are communicating.
Yes.
That's the thing. After 40 years together, maybe in the 1978, it was still kind of like, oh yeah, they're kind of navigating. So it's like, no, they're communicating. I don't understand where the people think that's not happening. And then she's
bullshit.
And then because particularly with the BBC one, you're like, what? It's like, no, they are 100% communicating. I mean, there's a nuance that, Coco is going to be unable to, because it's just I just think things. I don't necessarily think I have to express it until asked, because people are the ones who like to tell you about what they're thinking. But yeah, it's curious because I'm like, well, they're absolutely communicating. They do have a means of communicating.
Unquestionably.
Yeah, it's so strange to me that there's this denial of that. It's like, no, they are. I mean, it's not how people talk, but they are having a relationship. I don't know. It's baffling to me. But it seems like that's a resistance to this idea, because once you admit to that, you guys start caving on a whole bunch of other things too.
I mean, I communicate with my cats. We understand each other, even though we don't have a common language. And I'm from a farm family. People you can communicate to cows. They understand you. Dogs, we can talk to lots of animals. It's all horseshit when people say that stuff. Kind of like this guy. his film ratings. All 5 stars are just Criterion's, but here's some 1 stars for you, Jarrett. What Women Want, the Mel Gibson film. Stuart Little, written by M. Night Shyamalan. Mandy, Alpha Phil, and The Ship Sails On. Shake, Otis Plays Monterey, and The Night Porter. So those are some 1-star films from this individual. 5 stars are just all Criterions, and it's all boring. You know what I mean? So, film from men.
Yeah. This one's a lengthy one. We'll just read one more. The 10th Letter.
Okay.
2 stars. A talking, quotes, gorilla whose chained and binding neck device is called a necklace, who's confined criminally to a small room, whose herbivore's diet is manipulated with hamburgers, chicken, and presumably cow's milk, who rarely seems to be looking at the humans, leading one to think Coco actually hears better than she sees the signs. All in all, terribly depressing, and nearly 50 years later, we have not gotten any better.
This person just half-starred Licorice Pizza.
There you go.
Just they have a link to their art blog spot if you want to check out their art.
I'm good.
Well, you never know. You never know. They also half-starred Uncut Gems, Jarrett. Uncut Gems, they gave a half a star. Half a star to The Departed, which, you know. Only 5-star films are Casablanca, Maltese Falcon, and American Beauty.
Oh, wow. What? Who?
Well, also A Streetcar Named Desire is in there too.
Wow, I think 5-starring American Beauty in 2022.
It's pretty telling.
I think it's time to go back and check that one out. I mean, I love that movie in 1999, but
when you're like 40.
Well, when you're 15, 16, and it's like, holy shit, this is what movies can be.
Well, when you were 40, though.
Kevin Spacey saying, "You like muscles?
You like these kind of muscles?"
Yeah.
Yeah. So questionable. They also have a link to their Goodreads page.
Oh.
So let's see what this person's reading right now. Jay is currently reading Mark Hollis, A Perfect Silence by Ben Wardle. Yep.
You did it.
That's all I can take from this. I don't know how to read anything else on here, but
sounds good. Any final thoughts on Coco, a talking gorilla? How does this stack up with General Idi Amin Dada and Matrice in the Schroeder oeuvre?
I think that they all fit together in theme, which you're going to say, how do those fit together in theme? They do. This is a trilogy.
What is the theme?
Suffering.
Okay.
Whether it's animal, human, or pleasure suffering in Matrice, the trilogy theme is suffering, Jarrett. It's a Buddhist trilogy.
Yeah. Well, one day, Schroeder's crowning accomplishment, that is Barfly, will come to the collection.
Oh, baby. I'll be dead, but I hope you review it.
I hope to. Come on, somebody. Put that out in Region 1 in some form.
Somewhere.
Come
please.
on. I mean, I'm not sure who's going to be. Maybe it'll be Vinegar Syndrome. I don't care.
Vinegar Syndrome would be cool. Or, I don't know, Disney, maybe?
No. I mean, I think it would be great. In Criterion Collection, it would be right at home. But I'll take whoever wants to put out a 4K or whatever version of it. Get it done. It's doable.
It's doable, and it's necessary.
You know, I want to see Frank Stallone beating up Mickey Rourke. Okay.
I mean, that's every boy's dream.
Yeah.
I think. You know.
After the break, humanity still stinks.